Bowmer looked up as a group of her friends, who'd just logged into Magefall for the day, appeared in front of her. Seeing this, she bounced happily up and down and waved excitedly at them to get their attention. Upon seeing her, they all hurried over to where she was waiting. "Hey there, Bowmer. What you up to?" asked Sked, one of her friends. "You guys want to do something different today?" she asked with giddy glee. Sked laughed. "Sure, what you got in mind?" he asked. "You guys up for doing some trade runs in Galaxy of Empires? We made a lot of cred last time, and it was so much fun. So I thought we could do it again," exclaimed Bowmer happily. Sked looked back at the others in his party, all of whom shrugged as one. "Sure, I'm game," said one of them. The others all soon nodded in agreement, which caused Bowmer to cheer happily. This, in turn, drew grins from the others. Shortly after this, they all logged into Empires, grabbed their ship, and quickly headed out on a trading expedition. After making 3 short but profitable runs, the team was preparing to turn galactic east and pick up a 4th cargo when their consoles suddenly lit up with a warning of impending danger. "Oh man, we got pirates inbound," shouted one of them. "Yeah, and we're probably their prime target, even though we don't have a cargo right now," said the ops officer. "They probably don't care either way. If they capture us, empty or not, they'll just take the ship and throw us out an airlock," said the tactical officer. "Yeah, I agree. All right, Helm, get us out of here best possible speed. If they want our ship, we're going to make them work for it," said Sked. "I'm on it," shouted the helmsman in reply. The ship then quickly turned and jumped out of the area with the pirates hot on their tail. However, despite how fast they were going, they couldn't outrun them. "Oh man, we're so dragging, but right now, if we can't squeeze some extra speed out of our engines, we'll never get away from these guys," said the helmsman. "Bowmer," shouted Sked. "On it," replied Bowmer as she flitted across her engineering console. However, try as she might, she wasn't finding anything she could work with. "It looks like we're going to get captured and boarded one way or another, as I've got nothing left to give you," she said after a bit. Sked frowned. "Yeah, and I ain't letting that happen. See what you can cook up for a solution. We have to escape them one way or another." Just then the pirates, having come within range of their ship, fired energized, grappling lines which hooked onto the ship, causing it to lurch hard as they went taut. "We've been hooked! We've been hooked!" shouted the ops officer. "Bowmer," shouted Sked. "I'm working on it. Give me a fat second," she cried in reply. However, she wasn't finding anything that would work. "Captain, the pirates have armed weapons and are preparing to fire," shouted Ops. "Brace for impact," shouted Sked. Just then Bowmer perked up. If the pirates were about to fire, she had an idea. One of the strange and yet really useful abilities that she personally possessed was a skill called Ravenous Valor, which gave the user unprecedented strength, speed, and more at the cost of very high stamina drain, which could only be countered if one either constantly ate or absorbed energy. And, at this point, it was the latter that would serve her best. She then stepped away from the engineering console, grabbed a bulkhead, and activated the skill just a split second before the pirates opened fire. Round after round after round, then impacted the ship in a steady staccato beat. But, to the pirates' surprise, their shots had no effect. The rest of the bridge crew, expecting the worst, were perplexed as to why their ship hadn't been harmed. Bowmer, on the other hand, burped lightly, being very satisfied at the tasty meal of weapons energy that she'd just absorbed. Knowing that this would only be a temporary victory, she immediately grabbed her bag of holding and pulled from it a powerful magic energy crystal. If the ship didn't have enough power on its own to break away from the pirates, then she'd just have to give it a little nitro boost from her magical item storage. Knowing that time was short, she turned around, shoved the crystal into a power receptacle, and waited for it to connect. Shortly after this, the engineering console began screaming warnings and alerts that too much power was being pushed into the system. But she ignored these as she focused on bringing the new power source online. Once it was ready, she brought up a transfer button on her screen. "All right, everyone, hang on to something, because we're about to go really fast," she replied. The others looked at her in confusion. "Fast? We're already going as fast as we can," said the helmsman. Bowmer grinned devilishly, which made her teammates nervous. "Well, sweetheart, you ain't seen fast until you've seen this," she replied. She then smashed the transfer button, Suddenly, the ship's FTL drives, already operating at maximum capacity, came alive in a way that they had never seen before. But that created a small problem for the pirates, as the cargo ship was still attached to their own by a number of energized grappler lines. Thankfully, however, those wouldn't last long against the incredible power of the newly boosted FTL drives. A few moments later, the entire nose of the pirate ship ripped was clean away like tearing a loaf of bread in two as the cargo ship blasted away at ludicrous speeds, quickly achieving velocities never before seen in the game. Realizing that she had slightly overdone it, Bowmer quickly turned off the power transfer from the crystal. However, while checking to see just how far their little boosted jump had taken them, she was shocked to discover that so much energy was still bouncing around inside the FTL drives that there was no way for her to slow their already insane jump speeds. Thankfully, though, the jump only lasted a few more seconds before the drive finally used up all the extra energy that had been force-fed to it. Eventually, the cargo ship dropped to sublight where it floated quietly in the depths of space. As it did, everyone on the bridge looked at each other in shocked surprise. That hadn't been a ride they'd expected to experience. "What the hell was that?" asked the ops officer. "Whatever it was certainly crazy," said the helmsman. "Status report," said Sked. "FTL is quiet again and powering down. Sublight is fully available, and the ship reports as 5x5 with no damage. The only thing we have that's a problem is those stupid pirate grapplers, and a piece of their nose that's presently hanging from our stern like a bad but gremlin. But that should resolve itself in a few moments," said Bowmer. The others all looked at her briefly, and then each other, before returning their attention to their stations. "Helm, after that little joyride, I'm curious to know exactly where we are," said Sked. The helmsman quickly checked his console and examined it in detail. However, what he saw there didn't make any sense. Captain, you're not going to believe this, but we're not in Galaxy of Empires anymore. We're like 4 games over in Stellar Quandaries. Like, legitimately 4 games over," he said. Sked looked at him in confusion, and then turned to Bowmer, who grinned sheepishly. I think I kind of overdid the whole boost thing while we were trying to escape," she replied sheepishly. Sked shook his head at this and laughed. "All right, well, I guess we need to get back home so we can pick up another cargo." "Helm, how long will it take to get back to base?" he asked. The helmsman snorted. "Like a couple months at least. That is, unless Bowmer decides to spit shot us across entire galaxies again, which I'm sure we don't want to repeat anytime soon. Actually, if we want to make this go faster, we should find somewhere to dock, put our ship in our bag of holding, and then just log out of here and back in again at Empires, and we'll be back home again almost immediately," said Bowmer. The others all looked at each other in surprise at this rather ingenious suggestion. "That sounds kind of like cheating, but it also sounds kind of genius at the same time," said Sked in amazement. "All right, Helm, take us to the nearest spaceport so we can get this happy little joy right over with and back to what we were doing." "Aye, sir," replied the helmsman with a grin.